They sat me at the far end of a long, long table with two empty chairs between them and me. I could hear the laughter, the glasses clinking, the hugs. But I was all alone, in my son's house, at the dinner they organized for me. I was wearing the sweater my wife knitted for me before she passed away. I thought it was the perfect time to wear it, to feel close to her one more time at that table with our family. But when I saw that everyone had gifts except for me, when I listened to the toast where they mentioned everyone down to the dog but not me, I understood. They didn't invite me to celebrate me. They invited me to use me. If this story touches your heart, subscribe. Every day, we upload a true story that could be yours. Tell us where you're watching from. My name is Charles Miller. I am 81 years old. I've been a widower for 5 years, and that Christmas Eve, I dressed with such hope. I took the green sweater out of the closet that my wife Audrey knitted for me the last winter we spent together. I had kept it for years because it hurt too much to wear it. But that night I thought, it's Christmas. My children invited me. It's time to feel her close. I put it on slowly, running my fingers over every stitch woven by her hands. It smelled like mothballs and memories. I looked at myself in the mirror. An old man in a green sweater and tired eyes, but eager to see his family, eager to feel that he still mattered. I arrived at Robert's, my oldest son's house, at 7 o'clock in the evening. The street was lit up with colored lights. From outside I could hear music, laughter, the sound of plates. I stood in front of the door for a moment. I took a deep breath. I rang the doorbell. I waited. Nobody came. I rang again, louder. I heard hurried footsteps. The door opened, and Patricia, my daughter-in-law, appeared. She looked at me as if she wasn't expecting to see me. "Oh, Charles," she said. Just that. Not father-in-law, not Mr. Miller, not how nice to see you. Just my name. Dryly. "You're early," she added. I looked at my watch. It was 7 o'clock on the dot. The time they told me. I walked in. The house smelled of roast turkey, cinnamon, and pine. The Christmas tree glittered in a corner, full of expensive ornaments. I walked toward the dining room and stopped dead. The table. It was long, very long, set with white tablecloths, china plates, crystal glasses. And at one end, everyone was seated. Robert, my oldest son, Veronica, my daughter, Matthew, the youngest, Patricia, little Louis, my 8-year-old grandson, all together, talking, laughing. Nobody got up when I entered. Nobody came to hug me. Only Robert raised his hand from a distance, like greeting an acquaintance on the street. "Dad," he said, "sit over there." And he pointed to the other end of the table, the empty end. I walked slowly toward where he indicated. I passed 2 empty chairs. 2. Empty. I looked back. The family continued talking, oblivious to me. I reached the end and sat down. In front of me was a plate. Only a plate. There was no glass. There were no silverware. There was no napkin. I looked at the other side of the table. Everyone had their things, all complete, perfect. I waited. Maybe someone would come to finish setting my place. Maybe Patricia. Maybe Veronica. But nobody came. I stayed there with my hands in my lap, looking at the empty plate and the 2 chairs between them and me. "These 2 spots?" I asked aloud, pointing to the empty chairs. My voice sounded louder than I wanted. Robert looked up, annoyed by the interruption. "They're reserved," he said, short, dry. I asked again. "For whom?" Nobody answered. Matthew shrugged. Veronica looked at her cell phone. Patricia poured wine into the glasses, in all the glasses, except mine, because I didn't have a glass. Ah, I said, just that. I sat down again and realized they weren't reserved for anyone. It was just a way to keep me away, so I wouldn't get close, so I wouldn't be part of them. From my place, I could hear everything, every word, every laugh. Matthew was telling a joke about an old man who kept forgetting things. Everyone laughed. Robert added, just like Dad when he repeats the same story 3 times. More laughs. I was right there, meters away, listening to them. But it was as if I were invisible, as if I didn't exist. I tried to join the conversation. "And how was the year for you all?" I asked. Nobody answered. Either they didn't hear me or they pretended not to hear me. Veronica kept talking about her company, Matthew about his new car, and I remained there, sitting, alone, at my end of the table. I got up. I needed silverware. I needed a glass. I walked toward the kitchen. As I passed the table, I heard Patricia whisper to Robert, "So stubborn. He can't see well anymore and won't accept it." A soft laugh. Robert replied quietly, "Let him be. It keeps him busy." I stopped. I felt a knot in my throat. I kept walking. I entered the kitchen. I looked for a fork, a knife, a glass. I found them in the sink. Dirty, I washed them myself. My hands were trembling a little, not from old age, but from anger, from humiliation. I dried the silverware with a cloth, filled the glass with tap water, and returned to my place. I sat down again. I put the silverware on the sides of the plate, the glass in front of me. Nobody noticed that I had left and come back. Nobody asked if I needed anything. They began serving dinner. The platters passed from hand to hand among them, but they didn't reach me. I waited. Maybe someone would pass something to me. Robert served himself turkey, Veronica mashed potatoes, Matthew salad. Little Louis asked for more bread, and Patricia gave it to him instantly. I kept waiting until I realized nobody was going to pass me anything. I had to stretch, stand up a little, reach for the nearest platter, serve myself alone, and sit down again, in silence. I ate slowly. The turkey was dry, or maybe it was my mouth that was dry. I wasn't hungry, but I chewed. I swallowed because I didn't know what else to do. I listened to the conversations. Robert talked about his law firm, Veronica about a new business, Matthew about a trip to Miami. Everything was successful. Everything was perfect. And I was right there. The father who gave them everything, who worked from sunrise to sunset so they could study, so they could have houses, cars, comfortable lives. And now I was just a nuisance at the end of the table. With a plate I had to find myself, with a glass of tap water, while they toasted with wine. Little Louis, my grandson, looked at me occasionally, his big eyes curious. I smiled at him. He returned the smile, shyly, as if he didn't know if he was allowed to smile at me. At one point he raised his hand and waved at me. I waved back. Patricia saw him and pulled his hand down. "Little Louis, eat," she told him. Seriously. The boy lowered his head. He kept eating, and I was left with my hand raised for one more second, before lowering it, before becoming invisible again. I wondered if little Louis would ever remember this, how they treated his grandfather, how they left him alone in his own family. I looked at the sweater I was wearing, green, with a small hole in the cuff that Audrey never got around to fixing. I ran my finger over it, and I thought of her, how she would have reacted if she saw this. She would have gotten up, she would have yelled, she would have set things straight. But she wasn't here anymore. And I was here, alone, at the end of a table, surrounded by people, but more alone than ever. And for the first time that night, I asked myself, why did I come? Why did I accept this invitation? What did I expect to find here? Love, perhaps? Respect? But all I found was an empty plate and 2 chairs separating me from them. Like a wall, like a sentence. We finished dinner. The plates remained on the table. Patricia got up to clear, but only her side. Mine stayed there. Cold. Dirty. Nobody came for them. I got up myself. I took my plate to the kitchen. I left it in the sink next to the silverware I had washed earlier. I returned to my place. The family was still conversing. Animated. Loud. Robert was telling a work anecdote. Everyone was laughing. I tried to laugh too. But I didn't know what they were laughing about. I didn't understand the joke. I just smiled. Like a fool. And I sat down again. Waiting. Always waiting. Suddenly, Veronica got up. She clapped twice to get attention. "Okay, family," she said with a huge smile. "Before dessert, presents." Everyone applauded. Little Louis jumped in his chair. Matthew whistled. I felt something in my chest. A spark. Small, I thought. Maybe there's something for me. Maybe they have a surprise for me. Veronica left the room and came back with a big red bag, full of packages wrapped in gold paper. She put them on the table and started distributing. "This one is for Robert," she said. "This one for Matthew, this one for Patricia, and this one for little Louis." I waited, but my name didn't come. Robert opened his gift first, an expensive designer tie. "Sis, that's beautiful," he said. He put it around his neck. Everyone applauded. Matthew opened his, a bright metal watch. "Veronica, you went all out," he said, laughing. Patricia received a French perfume. Little Louis a toy, something with lights and sounds. Everyone was thanking each other. Everyone was smiling. And I was still there, with my hands on the table, empty, watching them open their gifts, watching them hug each other, watching them thank each other. And I didn't exist. Not even on Christmas. Not even for that. Veronica sat down again, satisfied, proud. I looked at the red bag. It was empty. There was nothing left. Nothing for me, I thought. Maybe she has it put away somewhere else. I didn't say anything. I didn't ask. I just smiled. I applauded along with them. "What nice gifts," I said. Nobody heard me, or they didn't want to hear. Veronica put away the bag, and they continued talking about the gifts, about how well off they were, about how much they loved each other. And I was there, sitting, with empty hands, feeling the weight of that absence sinking me into the chair, as if I were made of stone. I tried not to think about it. I tried to concentrate on something else, on the tree, on the lights, on the background music. But I couldn't, because I saw Robert's hands with the new tie, Matthew's with the watch, little Louis's with the toy, and mine, empty, wrinkled, old, with nothing. And I wondered, what did I do wrong? When did I stop mattering? When did I become someone who doesn't even deserve a gift? Not even something small, symbolic, something that said, "Dad, we remember you." But no, nothing, absolutely nothing. Then Robert got up. He took his glass. He raised it high. "I want to make a toast," he said in a loud voice. Everyone took their glasses. I took mine too. But it was empty. It only had the drops of water left from the tap. Nobody noticed. Nobody offered me wine. Robert began to speak. "I want to thank Veronica for organizing this beautiful dinner." She smiled. "To Matthew for always being there." Matthew nodded. "To Patricia for cooking this incredible feast." Patricia blushed. "And to little Louis for brightening our lives every day." Little Louis laughed. I waited. I waited for my name. But it didn't come. Robert continued. "And I also want to thank Fido," he said, laughing. Fido was Matthew's dog, "for being the best dog in the world and putting up with all of us." Everyone laughed. They toasted. "Cheers." And I remained there, with the empty glass halfway up, without drinking, without toasting, without being mentioned, not even after the dog, not even as a formality. Nothing. I lowered the glass, slowly. I put it on the table, and I felt something inside me break. Not with a sound, but with silence. The worst of silences. Nobody noticed. Or they did notice. And they didn't care. Veronica sat down again. She was laughing with Matthew about something. Robert was checking his cell phone. Patricia was wiping crumbs from the table. And I was there, watching them, wondering how I had reached this point. How the man who gave them everything, who worked until he broke, who sacrificed his dreams for theirs, was now less than the family dog, less than a pet, less than nothing. And the worst part wasn't the humiliation. The worst part was that they didn't see it as humiliation. They saw it as normal, as if I deserved to be there, forgotten. I tried to speak. I opened my mouth. "Honey," I said, looking at Veronica. She didn't hear me. She had her back to me. She was talking to Robert about a trip they wanted to take together. "Honey," I repeated a little louder. Nothing. Matthew laughed at something. Little Louie asked for more juice. Patricia got up to get it. And I was still there, trying to get the attention of someone, anyone. "Veronica," I said, almost yelling. She turned around. She looked at me as if annoyed. "What is it, Dad?" she said, with that tone that children use when the father is a burden. "Nothing," I replied. "Nothing." I shut up. I lowered my head, and she went back to her conversation, as if nothing. I looked at the sweater again, the green one that Audrey chose because she said it made me look younger. I touched the wool with my fingers, rough, old, like me. And I thought of her, how she hugged me, how she called me my love every morning, how she looked at me as if I were the most important thing in the world. And now she was dead. And I was here, surrounded by our children, the children we raised together, the ones we loved, the ones we dreamed of seeing happy. And they were happy. But without me. They didn't need me. They didn't want me. They only tolerated me. And that night, I understood it. I felt it in my bones, in my soul. The silence inside me was no longer silence. It was a muffled scream, a question without an answer. Why? Why did they invite me if it was going to be like this? To fulfill protocol? To say they spent Christmas as a family? To take pictures and upload them to their social media pretending everything was fine? I looked around. The long table. The 2 empty chairs. The gifts that weren't for me. The toast where they didn't even mention my name. And I realized, this wasn't my dinner. This wasn't my family. This was a play, and I was the extra, the one who appears in the background, without lines, without importance. But I didn't know the worst part yet. The worst was yet to come. Patricia came in from the kitchen with a tray, dessert, a Christmas pudding with whipped cream and red cherries on top. She put it in the center of the table, near them, far from me. Everyone applauded. "That looks delicious," Matthew said. Veronica already had her fork in her hand. Robert served portions, one for each of them. I waited. I waited for someone to ask me if I wanted some. I waited for someone to pass me a plate. But no one did. I stayed there, watching them eat, watching them enjoy it, watching them talk with their mouths full of pudding and happiness. And my stomach was empty, and my heart was even emptier. Little Louis, my grandson, ate slowly. From time to time, he looked up and watched me, his big eyes full of questions. Then he said it, with that innocence that only children have, with that brutal honesty that adults lose. "Mom," little Louis said aloud. Everyone continued talking. "Mom," he repeated louder. Patricia looked at him. "What is it, my love?" Little Louis pointed toward me with his spoon. "Why is Grandpa sitting so far away?" Silence. A silence so heavy it could split the table in two. Everyone stopped eating. Everyone stopped talking. Spoons remained suspended in the air. Veronica looked at Robert. Robert looked at Matthew. Matthew looked at his plate. And Patricia. Patricia turned red. Red with shame. Or anger. I don't know which of the two. But that silence said everything. Patricia let out a nervous laugh, one of those fake laughs used to cover discomfort. "Oh, little Louis, don't bother," she said quickly. Too quickly. She looked around for support. Nobody supported her. Robert coughed. Matthew drank water. Veronica grabbed her cell phone as if she had something urgent to check. And little Louis's question remained there, floating, unanswered, like a ghost that nobody wanted to see but that everyone knew was there. I looked at the boy. He was looking at me, confused. He didn't understand why no one was answering. He didn't understand why his question had caused such silence. And I didn't know what to tell him either, because the truth was too painful, even for me. Robert was the first to move. He coughed again, louder, as if to change the subject. He looked at Matthew. "Hey, did you see the game on Saturday?" Matthew grabbed the lifesaver. "Yeah, incredible." And they started talking about football, about goals, about players, anything, just not to answer what little Louis had asked. Veronica joined in. "I don't even watch football, but that game was good." A lie. She never watched football in her life. But there she was, lying, just to fill that uncomfortable silence. And I watched them, one by one, seeing how they dodged, how they fled, like cowards. Because that's what they were. Cowards who couldn't even look me in the eyes after what they did. Then I tried to help. I tried to save them from their own shame. "I'm fine here, son," I told little Louis with a forced, broken smile. "I have more space." My voice came out shaky. I couldn't control it. Little Louis frowned. He wasn't convinced by my answer. He was a child. But he wasn't stupid. He could see that something wasn't right. "But Grandpa, there are empty chairs," he said, pointing to the two chairs between us. "You could sit closer." He was right. Absolutely right. But the adults at that table weren't operating with reason. They were operating with shame, with guilt, with that silent cruelty that is worse than blows. Because it hurts more. Because it leaves no visible marks, only marks on the soul. Matthew changed the subject again. Now he was talking about a trip, about beaches, about a resort. Patricia cheered up. "Oh, yes, I want to go." Robert nodded. "We should plan something for the summer." And they continued, talking about trips, about plans, about futures, as if little Louis's question had never existed, as if I wasn't there, listening, feeling every word like a knife. Because they were talking about futures where I didn't exist, about plans where I wasn't invited, about lives that would go on without me. And the worst part is that they didn't even try to hide it. They didn't even bother to pretend anymore. And I was there, sitting, eating crumbs of respect, crumbs of love, if there was any of that left. It was at that moment that I understood. I really understood it. It wasn't an oversight. It wasn't carelessness. It was intentional. Everything. The long table, the empty chairs, the plate without silverware, the toast without my name, the gifts that didn't arrive. Everything was planned. They wanted me to be there, but far away. They wanted to say they celebrated with me, but without really including me. They wanted the photo, the proof, the "we fulfilled our duty as children." But they didn't want the father. They didn't want me. And that thought went through my chest like a bullet. Slow, painful, accurate. It was hard for me to breathe. I felt a weight on my chest, a weight that wasn't physical. It was worse. It was the weight of the truth. And the truth is the heaviest burden there is. It is vital to understand that the deepest kind of disrespect often manifests not in loud fights, but in calculated, subtle exclusion. This silent form of emotional cruelty, known as emotional neglect, is profoundly damaging. Recognizing that the fault lies not with you, but with those who choose to withhold kindness and acceptance, is the first step towards self-preservation. You are never obligated to endure disrespect, especially from those who should value you most. Veronica made a comment, casual, as if nothing. "He's just not the same anymore, is he?" She said it looking at Robert, as if I wasn't there. As if they were talking about someone absent. Robert nodded. "He's not the same anymore." And then he laughed. A soft, condescending laugh. "Poor thing," he added. "Poor thing." That word. That damn word. They said it with that tone. That tone they use to talk about old people in nursing homes, about sick dogs, about things that elicit pity, but are no longer useful. Poor thing. I was the poor thing. The one who was no longer the same. The one who was no longer useful. The one who was in the way. And they said it right there, in front of me, as if I couldn't hear. Or as if what I heard no longer mattered. I looked at my hands. They were on the table, wrinkled, stained by the sun from years of working the fields. On the ranch I bought with my sweat. The ranch they now wanted to inherit. My hands were trembling. But it wasn't from old age. It wasn't from cold. It was from rage. From a rage that had been bottled up for years. From a rage that was now awakening. Because I built everything they had. The houses, the cars, the careers, the education, everything. With these hands. With this body they now called a poor thing. And they were there. Sitting in their comfort, in their arrogance, laughing at me. At the man who gave them everything. Absolutely everything. And it wasn't enough for them. It was never enough for them. Little Louis didn't give up. God bless that child. With his soft voice, almost a whisper, he asked again, "But Grandpa, do you want to sit here with me?" He pointed to the chair next to him. My heart squeezed. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to get up and sit with him. With the only one who seemed to want me at that table. But before I could speak, Patricia exploded. "Little Louis, enough!" she yelled. The boy flinched. He lowered his head. He clenched his spoon. And he stopped asking. He stopped trying. Because that's how it works. Children learn fast. They learn that there are questions not to be asked. They learn that there are truths not to be told. And I learned something too. I learned that there was no place for me, not even next to my grandson. I swallowed. My throat hurt. Everything hurt. But I smiled. I smiled at little Louis, because I didn't want him to carry this. I didn't want him to feel guilty for asking the right thing. I'm fine, son, I told him again. My voice was cracked, broken. Little Louis nodded, but he didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes. And I didn't believe myself either. Because I wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. Something inside me had broken that night. Something that had been cracking for years. And now it finally shattered into 1,000 pieces. And I didn't know if I could ever pick them up. I didn't know if I wanted to pick them up. Because maybe it was time to leave them there, on the floor, and just leave. Patricia brought coffee. Little Louis had lowered his head. He wasn't looking at me anymore. He learned quickly, like everyone learns. Coffee in a silver coffee pot. Shiny, expensive. She put it on the table along with small white cups with gold rims. She started serving. One for Robert, one for Veronica, one for Matthew. She counted as she served. 1, 2, 3. She stopped. She looked at the cups. She looked around. There wasn't one for me. She hadn't brought enough, or she hadn't counted me. She went back to the kitchen. She brought one more cup. But it wasn't the same as the others. It was a plain white cup, without gold. She put it in front of me without saying anything, without looking at me, and she served coffee up to the halfway mark. The other cups were full. Mine was not. I took the cup. It was lukewarm. Everyone else's coffee was steaming. Mine was not. It was the leftover coffee, the one nobody wanted, like me. Matthew took out his cell phone. "Time for a family picture," he said animatedly. Everyone straightened up. Veronica fixed her hair. Robert adjusted his shirt. Patricia quickly wiped crumbs from the table. And I remained seated. At my end, far away. I started to get up. I thought they wanted me to come closer, that they would finally include me in something. I took 2 steps. Robert raised his hand. "No, Dad, stay there," he said without looking at me. "The shot is good just like that." I stopped, frozen. The shot is good just like that. Not come over, Dad. Not join us. No. Stay there, far away, where you don't get in the way, where you don't ruin the perfect picture. I went back to my chair, slowly, feeling every step as a defeat. I sat down, and they didn't even notice. Matthew raised his cell phone. He framed the shot. "Perfect," he said. He started recording. "Our beautiful family Christmas dinner." He narrated in a cheerful, fake voice. Everyone smiled. Those magazine smiles, commercial smiles, lies. They raised their glasses. They toasted in front of the camera. And I was there, at the end, out of frame, I could see the reflection of the cell phone screen in the window glass behind them. I saw the shot, the table, the smiles, the hugs. But I wasn't there. I didn't appear. I was cut out, invisible, erased. And Matthew kept recording. "What a blessing to be all together," he said. "All together. Everyone but me." But he didn't say that. That didn't make it into the video. Because a lie doesn't need uncomfortable truths. Matthew stopped recording. He looked at the screen. He smiled, satisfied. "It turned out perfect," he said. He showed it to Robert. "Look." Robert nodded. "Upload it." And Matthew started typing. I could see from where I was. Instagram, Facebook. "Family united this Christmas." Heart emojis. Christmas tree emojis. Clinking glass emojis. He published it. And I was not in that united family. I was not in that Christmas. I was there, yes, physically. But in the story they told the world, I didn't exist. They had created a version of the night where I didn't appear, where everything was perfect, where they were the loving children, and I was the ghost no one mentions. the shameful secret, the mistake that is hidden. Veronica also took out her cell phone. "I want to too," she said, excited. She stood up. She looked for the best angle. She started recording stories. She focused on the table, the food, the illuminated tree in the background, the opened gifts. She focused on Robert, on Matthew, on Patricia, on little Louis, one by one. She narrated each shot. My brother Robert, the best lawyer. Matthew and his humor. Patricia and her delicious food. My baby little Louis. She recorded everything except me. She passed the camera over the table, over the dining room, and when she reached my end, she lowered it. She cut the video, as if there was nothing there, as if I were an empty space, a hole, something that doesn't deserve to be shown. And she continued recording on the other side, without pauses, without explanations. I watched them, all three of them, Robert, Veronica, Matthew, my children, the children I carried in my arms, the ones I nursed when they were sick, the ones I comforted when they cried, the ones I defended when the world was cruel to them. And now, they were cruel to me. And they did it with smiles, with photos, with videos, creating a lie, a perfect family that didn't exist, a unity that was pure façade. And I was watching them build that lie in real time, watching them erase me, watching them turn me into nothing. And they did it so naturally, so easily, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, as if I didn't even deserve to be mentioned, as if my existence were a shame that had to be hidden. Patricia also posted something on her Facebook. She read aloud as she typed. "Grateful for family," she said in English, because now everything important is said in English. "Blessed beyond measure." And she added emojis, many emojis, hearts, praying hands, happy faces. Robert leaned over to see. "Perfect, love," he told her. He kissed her on the cheek. She smiled. And I thought, grateful? Blessed? Grateful for what? Blessed for what? For having me there? Forgotten in a corner? For being able to pretend they are a family while treating me like garbage? And the most painful thing was that they would surely receive hundreds of likes, hundreds of comments. What a nice family. What a blessing. And no one would know the truth. No one would know what happened that night, at that table. Then I understood it, with painful clarity. That's why they invited me. Not because they loved me, not because they missed me. They invited me because they needed me. They needed me for the show, for the photo, to be able to post on their social media that they were good children, that they fulfilled their duty, that they celebrated with their father. I was a prop, an object, a necessary accessory to complete the image, like the Christmas tree, like the table decorations. I was there so they could say, "We did well," so they could sleep soundly with their conscience, so no one would judge them. And once the photos were taken, once the videos were uploaded, I no longer mattered. I had already served my purpose. I could go back to being invisible. I felt nauseous, real, physical. My stomach churned. I wanted to get up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the table, break something, make them feel even a little of the pain I was feeling. But I didn't. I remained seated. I took a deep breath. I counted to 10. Then to 20, I clenched my fists under the table until my knuckles turned white. I closed my eyes. I thought of Audrey, what she would tell me. "Calm down, my love," she would tell me. "Don't give them that satisfaction." And she was right. If I exploded, if I made a scene, I would give them the reason they needed. I would give them the right to say, See, he's crazy. He's senile. He doesn't understand anymore. No, I wasn't going to give them that. Not yet. I would wait. I would observe. And when the time came, I would act. Matthew was still on his cell phone, checking the reactions to his post. He smiled every time a like came in. Look, he said, showing the screen. I already have 100 likes. Veronica checked hers. I have 80. They were laughing. They were competing over which post was more successful, over which lie was more believable. And then Matthew said something. Something that was the last straw. He laughed, looking at his video. Look, he said. The old man hardly appears in the shot. The old man. He called me the old man, and he laughed. As if it were a joke, the others laughed too. Uncomfortably, yes, but they laughed. And I stopped breathing for a second. The old man. That's what I was to them, the old man. Not Dad, not Father, not Charles. The old man. The nuisance. The mistake in the perfect picture. I clenched my fists harder. My nails dug into my palms. I felt the rage rising, hot, burning inside. But I kept my face neutral. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing how much it hurt. I looked at them one by one. Robert, the successful lawyer. Veronica, the businesswoman. Matthew, the architect. My children, my accomplishments. Or so I thought my whole life. But now I saw them clearly. They weren't my accomplishments. They were my mistakes. I raised them wrong. I gave them everything. And I didn't teach them to give anything back. I gave them comfort. And I didn't teach them empathy. I gave them money. And I didn't teach them love. And now I was paying the price. Sitting at the end of a table, in the house that my money helped buy. Being the old man, the extra, the detail that ruins the photo. And the worst part is that I allowed it. I allowed it for years. But not anymore. No more. The conversation continued, as if nothing had happened. As if I hadn't just been reduced to the old man in a video that thousands of people were now watching. Robert started talking about trips. I was looking at some packages for Cancun, he said animatedly. Patricia applauded. Oh, yes, we need a vacation. Matthew nodded. January's perfect. There aren't so many people. Veronica was already looking for hotels on her cell phone. Look at this resort, she said, showing pictures of white beaches and turquoise water. Everyone leaned in to look, excited, planning, dreaming. And I was there, meters away, listening to them make plans that didn't include me. But I didn't know for sure yet. I still had that foolish hope, the one that kills you slowly. Then I opened my mouth, and I asked, "Can I go?" My voice sounded small, weak, as if I were asking for permission, like a child asking if he can go out to play. Everyone froze. They stopped looking at their cell phones. They stopped smiling. They looked at each other. Those looks that say everything without saying anything. Robert cleared his throat. Veronica bit her lip. Matthew looked away. And then Veronica spoke, with that soft voice they used to talk to the terminally ill. "Oh, Dad," she said with a fake smile. "It's a long trip. Very long." She paused. "I don't know if you could handle it." Handle it? As if I were an old vase that could break on the way. As if I were fragile, useless, incapable. And the worst part is that she said it with sorrow, with pity, as if it really hurt her to tell me. Handle it? I. Charles Miller. The man who swam in freezing rivers when he was young, the one who worked from dawn until dusk under the scorching sun to buy the ranch. The one who carried 100-pound sacks when my children could barely walk. The one who built houses with his own hands. The one who never gave up. Not even when Audrey died and I felt like I was dying with her. Not when the bank almost took everything from me. Not when my knees started hurting and I kept working just the same. That man now couldn't handle a plane trip. That man was now too weak, too old, too useless. And they were saying it as if it were a fact. As if I were already dead in life. As if all that remained was to bury me and distribute what I left behind. Matthew changed the subject quickly. Too quickly. Well, changing the subject, he said with a forced smile. I was thinking about investing. Robert cheered up. In what? And they started talking about properties, about land, about business. They spoke with terms I didn't entirely understand. Stocks, dividends, returns. But I understood enough. They were talking about my money, the money I earned, the wealth I built. Only they weren't saying it directly. They disguised it. When we have more liquidity, Matthew would say. When the assets are released, Robert would say. Assets. I was the asset. Or rather, what I owned. And they were there. Planning, calculating, waiting. Waiting for me to die so they could take what was mine. And they were doing it right in front of me. Then Veronica said something that chilled my blood. When Dad can no longer take care of the ranch. She stopped. She looked at her brothers. She continued. We should think about selling it or renting it. We can't just leave it like that. When Dad can no longer. Not if Dad needs help. Not when Dad wants to. No, when he can no longer. As if it were an inevitable fact. As if it had already been decided that I was going to lose everything. And the worst part was that they spoke of me in the third person. I was right there, meters away, listening to them. But they talked as if I wasn't there, as if I were a piece of furniture. An object they could talk about freely because it has no feelings, because it doesn't matter. And they kept going, planning my future, my ending, without asking me, without including me, without even looking at me. I felt dizzy, sudden, strong. The room started to spin a little. The lights on the tree became blurry. The voices sounded distant, as if I were underwater. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath, once, twice, 3 times. I gripped the arms of the chair. I couldn't give them that satisfaction. I couldn't show weakness. Because if I did, if they saw me unwell, it would be the confirmation they needed. See? He can't even sit up anymore. He can't handle anything. It's time to make decisions. No. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. I opened my eyes. The room was still spinning, but less so. The voices returned, clear, painful, and they hadn't even noticed. They didn't even realize that I almost passed out, because they weren't looking at me. They never looked at me. I tried to get up. I needed air. I needed to get out of there, even for a moment. I put my hands on the table. I pushed myself up. But my legs were trembling, not from old age, from tension, from everything I was holding in. I took a step. I stumbled a little on the chair leg. I held on to the backrest. It was only a second. A small stumble. But Robert saw it. And he said it. With that tone, that damn I told you so tone. See? He said to Veronica. He can't even walk straight anymore. He was talking about me, in front of me, as if I couldn't hear him, or as if it no longer mattered that I heard him. Veronica nodded. It's true, she said with false concern. We should think about options. Options. What options? A nursing home? A nurse? Locking me in a room until I died? Were those the options? I sat down again. Slowly. My hands felt sweaty. My heart was beating fast. Too fast. I knew what was happening. An anxiety attack. It had happened to me before. After Audrey died. The doctor explained it to me. The heart speeds up. Breathing shortens. You feel like you're going to die, but you don't die. It's just the body reacting to pain, to stress. But I couldn't say it. I couldn't say, I feel unwell. Because if I did, if I asked for help, they would laugh, or worse. They would make that, "Oh, Dad" gesture, always so dramatic. They would think I was pretending, seeking attention, because that's how they saw me, as a complaining old man who exaggerated everything, as a burden, as a problem. So I stayed quiet, breathing shallowly, enduring, as I had endured my whole life. Veronica let out a soft laugh, but I heard it. "He doesn't understand anything anyway," she said, looking at her cell phone. I don't know if she was serious or joking. I don't know if she said it to hurt me or because she really believed it. But she said it. And Matthew laughed too. "It's true," he added. "The other day, I explained something to him 3 times and he didn't understand it. They were talking about me. As if I wasn't there. As if I were a joke, a reason for ridicule. And I listened to them. Every word, every laugh, every stab. Because that's what they were, stabs. Not in the body, in the soul. In that part that no one sees, but hurts more than any physical wound. And I stayed there, quiet. Because I knew that if I spoke, if I defended myself, I would only make things worse. I would only give them more reasons to laugh. To say, "Look, he gets angry about everything." I looked up at the ceiling. White. With a crystal chandelier in the center. Expensive. Shiny. I remembered when they were little. Robert was no older than 5. Veronica 3. Matthew was a baby. Audrey bathed them while I prepared dinner. We ate together. At a small, old wooden table. But we ate together. Happy. Poor but happy. The children laughed. They talked about their days, and I listened to them. I really listened to them. Not like now. When they pretend to listen to me but are thinking of something else. Where did that get lost? When did we stop being a family? Was it when I got money? When I gave them everything and stopped demanding anything? Was it my fault? Did I spoil them myself by giving so much and asking so little? Maybe. Maybe yes. Maybe I created these monsters that were now devouring me. The pain in my chest increased. It wasn't just anxiety anymore. It was something else. Deeper. More real. I felt pressure, as if someone was squeezing my heart with a fist. I breathed shorter, faster. I tried to hide it, to maintain composure. But it was hard for me, very hard. I closed my eyes for a moment. I thought of Audrey, her face, her voice. "Hold on, my love," she would have told me, "just a little longer." But I didn't know if I wanted to hold on. I didn't know if it was worth it. I didn't know if it made sense to stay at that table, in that house, with those people who were once my children, but were now strangers. Cruel strangers. I got up. I needed water, or air, or to escape even for a minute from that table. From those voices. From that pressure in my chest that wouldn't stop growing. "I'm going to the bathroom," I said. Nobody answered. Nobody asked if I was okay. Nobody looked up. I walked toward the hallway. Slowly, my legs felt heavy. Everything felt heavy. Robert's house was large. The bathroom was at the end. I passed through the kitchen. I stopped to drink tap water. I filled a glass. I drank. The water was cold. It helped me a little. I breathed. I tried to calm myself. I tried to tell myself that everything was fine, that it was just a bad night, that tomorrow would be different. But I knew I was lying. I knew that nothing would be different. And then I heard them. They were talking in the living room. They weren't shouting, but their voices reached me clearly down the hallway. I stood still, behind the wall, hidden like a thief in my own family. I didn't want to listen, but I couldn't move either. It was Veronica's voice. "Did you see how he was eating?" she said. A soft laugh. "He makes those weird noises. It's unbearable," Matthew replied. "I know. He's always been like that. But now it's worse." More laughter. Patricia added something. "That's why I sat them far away. I didn't want all of us to have to endure it." "The smell?" Veronica asked. "Yes," Patricia confirmed. "He doesn't take care of himself like he used to. I don't think he even showers properly." Silence. And then Robert. It was a good idea to sit him there. At least we didn't have to smell it throughout dinner. They laughed. All of them. They laughed at me, at my smell, at my noises, as if I were an animal, as if I were garbage. I felt real, physical nausea. I put my hand over my mouth. I wanted to vomit, but I held it in. I stayed there, paralyzed, listening, because something in me needed to hear, needed to know how far it went. Matthew spoke again. "How much longer do you think he has?" The question hung in the air. No one answered immediately. And then Robert, the lawyer, the eldest son, the one who was supposed to take care of me. "I don't know. 81. At that age, anything can happen." Veronica sighed. "I hope he doesn't suffer much." She sounded concerned, almost convincing. But then she added, "It would be easier if it were quick, wouldn't it?" And there it was. The truth. They wanted me to die, quickly, without suffering too much, not for me, but because it would be easier for them, cleaner, more convenient. Robert lowered his voice, but I still heard it. I already spoke with the notary. My heart stopped. "What for?" Matthew asked. "To have everything ready, the ranch, the properties, everything. All that's left is for him to sign." "Or what?" He stopped. "Or what?" Veronica insisted. Robert didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Everyone understood. "Or I could die." That's what he was going to say. All that was left was for me to die. And they already had the papers ready. They had already consulted. They had already planned. My death, my funeral, the division of my assets, everything. While I was alive, sitting meters away, eating alone, at my end of the table, they were already burying me. Matthew whistled softly. "How much is the ranch worth now?" Robert replied. "With the current market, about $3 million. Maybe more." Veronica stifled an exclamation. "I didn't know it was that much." "Well, yeah," Robert said. "Dad bought well, back in the day. Back in the day, as if that time had already passed, as if I no longer existed." "And what do we do?" Matthew asked. "Sell? Rent?" They were deciding, right there, that night, what to do with what was mine, with what I built, with my sweat, my blood, my entire life. And I wasn't invited to that conversation, because what I thought no longer mattered. What I wanted no longer mattered. Only what they could gain from me, from my death, from my remains. "We should divide it into 3 equal parts," Veronica said. Always the most practical. Yes, Robert agreed. Although we would have to consider the situation with Isabella, my granddaughter. What about Isabella? Matthew asked, annoyed. She's his granddaughter, Robert interrupted. Legally, she has a right. Veronica scoffed. But she left. She wasn't here. Were you here? That's what they said. But where were they? When? When were they with me when I needed them? When Audrey died? When I was sick last year? When I turned 81 and no one called me until 3 days later? Was that being here? Anyway, Robert continued, we have to think about it. Silence, and then Patricia. What if he lives another 10 years? The fear in her voice was palpable, as if 10 more years of my life were a sentence. For them. Robert sighed. I don't think he'll last that long. You saw how he is. Yes, Matthew agreed. He's not the same anymore. He forgets things. He repeats stories, Veronica added. Veronica. And he's getting slower. More clumsy. Patricia lowered her voice. Do you think he should be in a specialized facility? A specialized facility. A nursing home. They wanted to lock me up. I don't know, Robert said. That would cost money. And what for? If he's going to die anyway. He didn't finish. But I understood. Why spend money taking care of me if I was going to die soon anyway? Better to save. For them. For their inheritance. For their comfortable lives that I financed. I felt like I was suffocating. That the walls were closing in, that the air wasn't enough. My hands were trembling. I almost dropped the glass of water. I put it on the counter, carefully, without making a sound. Because they couldn't know I was there. That I had heard everything. He's 81, Veronica said. Again, as if reminding everyone. It's not cruel to say this. It's realistic. Realistic? Were they calling wishing for my death realistic? Planning my funeral while I ate alone meters away? It's true, Matthew supported. Besides, he no longer has quality of life. Why prolong it? Prolong it. As if my life were a boring movie they wanted to end. As if my days were an inconvenience. A tedious wait until they could cash in. Anyway, Patricia said, better not to talk about this now. He's here. Ah, so they did know. They knew I was in the house. They simply didn't care. Or they thought I was too deaf, too senile, too finished to hear. They were wrong. I heard every word, every betrayal, every stab. Robert changed the subject. Well, anyway, everything is already prepared. When the time comes, it will be quick. How long does a process like that take? Matthew asked. With the papers I have, a month maximum. 2 if there are complications. 1 month, 2 months, and I would disappear from their lives, my name erased, my existence turned into deeds, bank accounts, properties to be divided. That was all that remained of me, of 54 years of being a father, of a lifetime of working, loving, sacrificing myself. Numbers, papers, procedures, nothing more. Perfect, Veronica said, and everyone agreed. Perfect. My death would be perfect for them, convenient, profitable, and I was there, listening, dying inside, feeling how the little love I had left for them turned into ashes. I moved away from the wall, slowly. My legs barely supported me. I walked toward the bathroom. I needed to see myself in the mirror. I needed to confirm that I still existed, that I was still real. I went in. I locked the door. I looked at myself. An old man looked back at me, wrinkled, tired, with watery eyes, with the green sweater that Audrey knitted, stained with food. And I understood. I understood why they saw me like that, why they treated me like that. Because I had let them. I had let them turn me into this, into the old man who smells bad, who makes weird noises, who is in the way, who waits for death at the end of the table, while his children divide his inheritance. I washed my face. The cold water brought me back to my senses a little. I took a deep breath. Once, twice, 3 times. I had to go back. I had to sit at that table again. Pretend I hadn't heard anything. Because if I said something, if I confronted them, I would only confirm what they thought. That I was crazy, senile, paranoid. I left the bathroom. I walked back to the living room. My steps sounded hollow on the wooden floor. When I entered, everyone was in their places, smiling, talking about trivial things, as if they hadn't just planned my death, as if they hadn't just laughed at my smell, at my noises, at my existence. I sat down at my end, in my empty chair, surrounded by the 2 chairs that separated me from them. But now I understood. Those chairs didn't separate me. They protected me. They kept me away from their poison, from their falsehood, from their cruelty. I looked at them, one by one, and I no longer felt love. I felt pity. Pity for them, for what they were, for what they had become. And I felt something else, something growing in my chest. It wasn't pain. It was clarity, cold, brutal, final. And at that moment, at that precise moment before everything changed, I knew what I had to do. Then I heard something. A doorbell. The door. Someone was knocking, and everything was about to change. The doorbell rang again, more insistently. Everyone stopped talking. They looked at each other, puzzled. "Are you expecting someone?" Matthew asked. Robert shook his head. Patricia shrugged. Veronica looked at her cell phone as if the answer was there. The doorbell rang for the 3rd time. "I'm coming," Robert said, getting up. He walked toward the door. We remained in silence, waiting. I still had the pain in my chest, breathing shallowly. But no one noticed. No one looked at me. I heard the door open. I heard a voice, feminine, cheerful, familiar. And then I heard her shout, "Surprise!" And I recognized that voice. It was Isabella, my granddaughter, my Isabella, the one who left to study abroad, the one I hadn't seen in 2 years. And she was here, on this night, in this nightmare. Everyone got up abruptly. The chairs scraped. "Isabella!" Veronica shouted, running toward the door. "No way!" Matthew said, following her. I heard hugs, laughter, exclamations. "Cousin, what are you doing here? I thought you were in New York." Isabella laughed. "I wanted to surprise you," she said. "I took the first flight I could." Her voice. God, her voice. It was like hearing Audrey. The same tone, the same warmth. I closed my eyes. I felt something in my chest. But this time it wasn't pain. It was something else. Relief, maybe. Hope. I don't know. She was always different. She always called me. She asked me how I was. She listened to me. She really listened to me. And now she was here. I didn't know if that was good or bad. But she was here. And something in me clung to that. She entered the dining room, smiling, beautiful. She looked so much like Audrey when she was young. The same dark hair, the same big eyes. She had a backpack over her shoulder. travel-wrinkled clothes. But she was smiling, with that smile that illuminated everything. She looked around, the tree, the table, the decorations. "Everything looks so beautiful," she said. She hugged her mother, her uncles, Patricia, little Louis. She moved among them naturally, with love. And I was there, at my end, waiting my turn, waiting for her to see me, for her to recognize me, for her to come toward me. But she still hadn't. She was busy greeting everyone, and I could wait. I had waited all night. I could wait a little longer, just a little longer. Then she did it. She finished hugging Matthew. She took a step back to see the whole table, and her gaze reached me, to the end where I was, alone, separated. Her smile froze. It literally froze on her face. Her eyes widened, her mouth opened slightly, and I saw how her expression changed, from joy to confusion, from confusion to disbelief. She looked at the long table, the 2 empty chairs, the family grouped at one end, and me, alone, at the other, with my cup of cold coffee, with my dirty plate that no one had collected, with my green sweater that Audrey knitted for me. And I saw how she understood, how she processed it, how reality hit her, slowly, painfully, and something in her face broke, like something in me had broken hours earlier. Her voice changed. It was no longer cheerful. It was low, sharp, like a knife. "What is going on here?" She said that, looking at her mother, at her uncles, at everyone. No one answered. Veronica tried to hug her again. "Honey, how nice that you—" Isabella pulled away. Not abruptly, but she pulled away. "No," she said. "First, explain to me. What is going on here?" She pointed toward me, toward my empty end of the table. "Why is Grandpa sitting there?" Her voice was trembling, not from fear, from rage. Robert tried to speak. "Isabella, it's just—" She raised her hand. "No, don't tell me what it is. Explain it to me." And the silence that followed was deafening. Because there was no explanation. There was no excuse. There was only the naked, cruel truth. And no one wanted to say it. No one answered. Matthew looked at the floor. Robert scratched the back of his neck. Veronica crossed her arms. Patricia played with her napkin. And I watched them. I watched how they couldn't defend the indefensible, how they couldn't justify the unjustifiable. Isabella waited. 5 seconds, 10, 20, and no one spoke. Then she walked, toward me. Her steps echoed in the silence. 1, 2, 3. She passed the 2 empty chairs, and she reached me. She knelt beside me, like she used to do when she was a child, and asked me to tell her stories. She knelt and took my hand. Her hands were warm, soft, and mine were cold, trembling. "Grandpa," she said softly. Just that. "Grandpa," and she looked me in the eyes, and I looked at her, and I couldn't hold her gaze, because I had tears, and I didn't want her to see them. I lowered my head. She squeezed my hand. "Grandpa, are you okay?" What a question. What a terrible question, because the answer was no. I was not okay. I hadn't been okay for a long time, but I couldn't say it. Not with everyone watching, not with that exposure. So I just shook my head, slowly. This is a crucial moment for integrity. Standing up for yourself or for someone being unjustly treated requires immense moral courage. The value of speaking the truth, even when your voice is trembling or weak, outweighs the comfort of maintaining a false peace. as American culture emphasizes. Protecting the innocent and confronting injustice are acts of profound goodness that define character, especially when facing familial pressure. Unbelievable. Isabella took a deep breath. I could feel her rage, her powerlessness. She stood up. She turned toward the others, and she spoke, with a voice I had never heard from her. Hard, cold, full of disappointment. "Is this how you treat him?" she asked. "Is this how you treat your father?" Veronica opened her mouth to answer. Isabella didn't let her. "Is this how you treat the man who gave you everything? Who worked his whole life so you could have what you have?" Every word was a hammer, hitting, breaking, exposing. Robert tried to take control. He always tried to take control. "Isabella, it's not what it seems," he said with that lawyer's voice. That voice he uses to manipulate juries. But Isabella wasn't a jury. She was his niece, and she knew him. "No," she said. "It's not what it seems." She took 2 steps toward him. "Then explain it to me, Uncle. Explain to me why my grandfather is sitting alone." Pause. "Why does he have 2 empty chairs separating him from you?" Pause. "Why is his plate still dirty on the table and no one collected it?" Pause. "Why doesn't he have the same silverware as you?" Pause. "Why didn't you mention him in the toast?" Pause. "Explain it to me." "Because I arrived 5 minutes ago and I've already seen everything. Everything." And Robert had no answer. Because there was no answer. There was only naked, cruel guilt. Matthew looked away. Veronica played with her cell phone. Patricia slipped into the kitchen. Cowards. They were all cowards. Isabella looked at them one by one. "And the gifts?" she asked. "I saw that everyone has gifts. Does Grandpa have one?" Silence. Did anyone ask him how he was? Did anyone hug him when he arrived? Did anyone treat him like family? Every question was a slap, and they received them in silence, because they knew. They knew it was true, that they had failed, that they had been cruel, and now they had to face it. Face someone who did love me, who did see me as a person, as a grandfather, as Charles. Not as the old man, not as the burden, but as me. And that hurt them, because it showed them what they were, monsters dressed as children. I looked around. Matthew had his head down. Robert was looking at the ceiling. Veronica had her arms crossed, but it was no longer a defiant posture. It was a defensive posture, the posture of someone who knows they have been discovered. Patricia peeked out from the kitchen, but she didn't come in. And little Louie was crying softly. Because children know, children feel. They feel injustice even if they don't understand the words. And he had been watching it all night, watching how they treated his grandfather. And now he was crying. Maybe for me. Maybe because he understood that his family wasn't what he thought. That there were cracks. Deep ones. Dark ones. And once you see those cracks, you never stop seeing them. You can never pretend they're not there. And I felt a strange mixture. Relief because someone finally said what I couldn't. But also pain because this confirmed everything. Isabella turned back toward me. She took my hand again. She squeezed it as if telling me, "You are not alone, not anymore." And for the first time all night, I felt something akin to warmth, something akin to love. I closed my eyes. The tears I had held back all night finally fell, silent. Down my cheeks, down my white beard, they fell onto the sweater Audrey knitted for me. And I didn't care. I didn't care that they saw me cry, because I no longer had to pretend. I no longer had to be strong. I no longer had to endure, because someone was there. Someone saw me. Someone defended me. And that was more than I had had in a long time. But the night wasn't over yet. The worst, or perhaps the best, was still to come. Isabella stood up. She still had my hand. I felt it tremble, with rage, with powerlessness. She looked at her mother, straight into her eyes. "Mom," she said, "tell me it's not true. Tell me you didn't do this on purpose." Veronica straightened up. That defensive posture I know well, the same one she used when she was a child, and I caught her in a lie. "Isabella, you don't understand," she started to say. But Isabella cut her off. "What don't I understand? What don't I understand? I came here and found my grandfather alone, separated, as if he weren't part of the family. What is there to understand?" Veronica took a deep breath, and then she said it, the most blatant lie I had ever heard in my life. "He wanted to sit there." She said that, with a straight face, as if I weren't present, as if I couldn't deny it, and something in me broke even more. I opened my mouth. I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell the truth. But my voice came out weak, hoarse. "It's okay, honey," I managed to say. The words cost me. They cost me air. They cost me strength. Isabella turned toward me. Her eyes were red, wet. "No, Grandpa," she said firmly. "It's not okay." She knelt again. She looked at me intently. "Tell me the truth. Did you want to sit there?" And I couldn't lie. Not to her. I shook my head, slowly, once, and I saw her eyes fill with tears. "I knew it," she whispered. She stood up. She turned toward her mother. "You lied," she told her. She didn't shout, but her voice was worse than a shout. It was pure disappointment. "You lied to me, and you humiliated him." Veronica opened her mouth. Nothing came out, because there was no defense, only guilt. The room filled with shouting. Isabella shouted. Veronica shouted back. "You have no right to come here and judge us," she said. Robert intervened. "Enough already, both of you." But Isabella wouldn't be quiet. "Judge you? I'm just telling the truth." Matthew tried to calm her down. "Isabella, understand that we..." She gently pushed him away. "What? What am I supposed to understand? That you're waiting for him to die so you can take everything?" That was what no one had said aloud. But there it was, the naked truth. And everyone fell silent. Little Louis started crying, loudly, scared. The shouting scared him. Patricia took his hand. "Come, my love," she told him. And she took him to another room, and the shouting continued, getting louder, louder, until I felt like I was drowning in it. Robert approached Isabella with that accusing finger he used in court. "Don't come here and judge us," he told her. His voice was deep, threatening. "You who left, who abandoned us, who wasn't here." Isabella didn't back down. She stood there, firm. "You're right," she said. "I left, and now I see I did the right thing. Because this," she pointed to the table, "you all, me, this is disgusting." Robert turned red. "Disgusting?" She nodded. "Yes, disgusting. I'm not judging you, Uncle. I'm seeing you, seeing what you are, and it makes me sick." Those words fell like stones. Robert took a step back. Matthew lowered his gaze. Veronica covered her mouth. And I I felt the room spinning again, harder. The voices became distant. My heart was pounding in my ears, loud, faster and faster. Then I felt it, my chest. It tightened, as if someone had put a giant hand on my heart and was squeezing it. I tried to breathe. The air wouldn't enter, or very little did. I tried again. Nothing. The pain expanded, from my chest to my left arm, to my neck, to my jaw. I knew those symptoms. I had read them. I had heard them. Heart attack. This is a heart attack. I thought that. And I was afraid. Real, visceral. Because I didn't want to die there, not at that table, not surrounded by people who hated me, not like this. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't ask for help. I could only stay there, sitting, clenching my chest with my hand, feeling life escaping me, drop by drop, beat by beat. And no one noticed, because they were still shouting, still fighting, oblivious to me, as always. Isabella was the first to see me. She stopped shouting. She looked at me. "Grandpa, what's wrong?" Her voice changed, from rage to fear, in a second. She ran toward me. "Grandpa, what's wrong?" I pointed to my chest. She understood. She turned pale. "No, no, no," she repeated. She touched my forehead. It was soaked. Cold sweat, running down my face, down my neck. My sweater was wet. Isabella grabbed my face. Look at me, Grandpa." I tried, but everything was blurry. The lights, the faces, everything looked as if through murky water. "Help!" Isabella shouted. "Help me!" And then everyone turned. Everyone saw me. For the first time all night, they really saw me. And there was something on their faces. I don't know if it was concern, or if it was fear of being blamed. But there was something. And I still couldn't breathe. I tried to say something. "I'm fine," but it didn't come out. Just a sound. A moan. I leaned back in the chair. My head felt heavy. My arms weren't responding. Isabella held me. "Don't go," she screamed. "Don't go, Grandpa." And there was panic in her voice. Real panic. I heard footsteps. Robert appeared by my side. "Dad?" That word. I hadn't heard it in hours. "Dad." I tried to look at him, to focus, but I couldn't. Everything was shadows, distant voices. I felt my heart beating, irregular, fast, slow, fast again, and I thought, this is it. This is the end. I'm going to die here, in my son's house, at a table where they didn't want me. And Audrey is waiting for me. Maybe it's better this way. Maybe it's time. I closed my eyes and let myself go. But they didn't let me. "Dad, no!" someone shouted. I think it was Veronica. I felt hands on me. Someone was moving me. "Call the paramedics," Robert shouted, running footsteps. Matthew on the phone. "Yes, my father. I think it's a heart attack. Come quickly, please." His voice was trembling. Or maybe it was I who was trembling. I didn't know. Someone loosened my shirt. They gave me air. They spoke to me. "Hold on. They're coming. Breathe." But I couldn't. I couldn't do anything but be there, floating in that pain, in that darkness. I felt water. Someone put a glass to my lips. I tried to drink. It spilled. I felt the cold water on my chin, and then nothing. Just voices, distant, like in a tunnel, and a hand, small, warm, squeezing mine. Isabella. It was Isabella, and that anchored me. It kept me there, a little longer. I don't know how much time passed. Seconds, minutes, an eternity. Everything was mixing. I saw lights, blue, red. I heard sirens, a door opening, new voices, professional. "Sir, can you hear me?" I opened my eyes a little. I saw a face, uniform, paramedic. "Can you hear me?" I nodded. Barely. "Good. Stay with us." I felt something in my arm. A needle. Something cold entering my veins. Oxygen in my nose. Cold plastic. They checked my pulse, my blood pressure. They asked questions. I tried to answer. Sometimes something came out, sometimes not. And meanwhile, I thought about my life, about Audrey, about my children when they were little, about the ranch, about everything I built, about everything I gave. And I thought, for this? To die like this? Surrounded by people who are just waiting for me to leave? Is this my end? And I don't know why. But at that moment, in that moment of pain, of fear, of darkness, I felt rage that it would end like this, that they would win. And that rage kept me alive. Isabella didn't let go of my hand. She was kneeling next to the stretcher they had brought. She was crying. "Hold on, Grandpa," she said between sobs. "Please, hold on." And I wanted to tell her that I was fine, not to cry, that everything was going to be okay. But I couldn't. I could only squeeze her hand. A little. Just enough for her to know. To know that I heard her, that I was there, that I hadn't left yet. The paramedics continued working. "Blood pressure low but stable," one said. "Irregular heart rhythm," another said. And I listened to everything, every word, every diagnosis, as if they were talking about another person, as if it weren't me who was there, stretched out, broken, about to leave or to stay. I didn't know which was worse. The lead paramedic straightened up. He looked at my family, at Robert, at Veronica, at Matthew, at Isabella. "We're going to take him in," he said, "for observation." Isabella nodded. "I'm going with him." The paramedic hesitated. "Only one family member." "I'm his granddaughter," she said firmly. "I'm going with him." They started moving me, lifting the stretcher, and before they took me out, before we crossed that door, I opened my eyes. I looked at them, at everyone, at my children, standing, watching me, and I saw something on their faces that I will never forget. Something that broke me more than the pain in my chest. Something that made me understand everything. But that would come later. When I could breathe, when I could think, when I could process what I had just seen in their eyes. Because what I saw changed me forever. In the ambulance, everything was noise, machines beeping, the engine, the tires on the asphalt, and the questions. So many questions. "What is his name?" "Charles Miller." My voice was coming out better now, clearer. "Age?" 81. "Any pre-existing conditions?" "No, I don't know." The paramedic was writing, quickly, checking numbers on a screen. Blood pressure 130/85, rising. Isabella was sitting next to me. She wouldn't let go of my hand. She was crying in silence. I looked at her and I thought, at least she's here. At least I'm not alone. The oxygen kept flowing, cold, constant. My breathing stabilized. Little by little, the pain in my chest decreased. It was no longer that squeezing fist. It was more of a pressure, uncomfortable but bearable. "How are you feeling?" the paramedic asked. "Better," I said. And it was true. We arrived at the hospital. White lights, bright, They took me off the ambulance, quickly, professionally, down long corridors, turning, to an emergency room. They transferred me to a bed. More cables, more machines. A doctor appeared, young, serious. He checked the papers the paramedic brought. He looked at the screens. He examined me. Heart, lungs, blood pressure again. He asked the same questions. Age, symptoms? When did it start? I told him. The dinner, the shouting, the pain. He took notes, without judging, without giving an opinion, just facts. After several minutes, he straightened up. He looked at Isabella, at me. "Mr. Miller," he said, "it doesn't seem to be a heart attack." My heart that seconds ago feared a fatal attack, now felt... what? Relief. Yes. But also something else. Something I couldn't identify yet. Most likely, the doctor continued, it was a severe anxiety attack. Anxiety, an anxiety attack, not a heart attack, not death, just anxiety. Isabella sighed. "Thank God," she said. She put her hands to her face. She was crying, but now it was different. It was relief. It was gratitude. She squeezed my hand tighter. "Grandpa," she said, "you're fine, you're fine." And I nodded. Because physically, yes, I was fine. My heart was beating normally. My blood pressure was normalizing. My breathing was regular. The doctor recommended rest, avoiding stress, maybe seeing a cardiologist, just in case. But he said I could leave in a few hours, after observation. Isabella made a phone call. To her mother, I suppose. "It wasn't a heart attack," she was saying. "It was anxiety. Yes, he's fine. He's stable." I listened. "No, don't come. I'm staying with him." More silence. "Yes, I'll tell them." She hung up. She looked at me. "They ask how you are." They didn't ask if they could come. Only how I was, as if I were a report, a status update, nothing more. Half an hour passed. The doctor came back. He checked everything again. "You look good," he said. "You can go home. But with someone. You shouldn't be alone tonight." Isabella nodded. "He's coming with me." The doctor signed papers. They gave me instructions. Rest, no stress. If the pain returned, come back immediately. We left. Isabella called a cab. We waited outside. The night air was cold. I pulled my sweater closer. The one Audrey knitted. It still smelled of that hospital. Of disinfectant. Of fear. The cab arrived. We got in. Isabella gave her address, and we left. In silence, watching the city lights pass by. The Christmas streets. Still decorated, still festive. As if nothing had happened. As if my world hadn't broken that night. And maybe it hadn't. Maybe it was always broken. Only that night I finally saw it. I went back to Robert's house, only to get my coat, my wallet. I didn't want to go in, but I had to. Isabella went in with me. The door was unlocked. We walked in. Everyone was there, in the living room, waiting. They stood up when they saw us. Robert spoke first. "Dad, how are you?" He sounded concerned. But there was something else in his voice, something I couldn't place. "Fine," I said shortly. It wasn't a heart attack, just anxiety. Silence. A strange, uncomfortable silence. And then I saw it. I saw it on their faces. On Matthew. On Veronica. Even on Robert. It wasn't relief. It wasn't happiness that I was fine. It was disappointment. Subtle. But it was there. In the way they lowered their shoulders. In how their faces didn't completely relax. In how they looked at each other. And I understood it. I understood it with a clarity that hurt more than the pain in my chest. They were disappointed. Disappointed that it wasn't serious. That it wasn't the end. Matthew let out a nervous, forced laugh. "Oh, Dad," he said. "You scared us for nothing." For nothing. He said for nothing. As if what I felt wasn't real. As if the fear, the pain, the certainty that I was dying didn't matter. Because it wasn't a heart attack. Because I didn't die. Then it didn't matter. Then it was for nothing. I looked at him, and I saw the irritation in his eyes, the annoyance, as if I had made them waste their time, as if I had ruined their night. Because that's what it was. I ruined their night. The dinner, the photos, the videos, everything. With my drama, with my anxiety. And now I was here, still alive, still getting in the way. And they wanted me to leave, to disappear, to leave them alone. And they knew it. And I knew it. And we all pretended we didn't. Veronica crossed her arms. "It was just anxiety," she said, as if it were something insignificant, as if anxiety wasn't real, wasn't valid. "Over the top as always," she added in a low voice. But I heard her. I heard her perfectly. As always. As if I always caused drama. As if I always sought attention. As if this was my fault. And maybe she was right. Maybe I was exaggerating. Maybe I should endure more. Shut up more. Bear more. But I couldn't anymore. There was nothing left in me to endure. Isabella held my arm tighter. She knew I was hearing everything. She knew it hurt me. And she was holding me up. Literally holding me up so I wouldn't fall. Because I felt like I was going to fall. That I was going to break right there. Into such small pieces that no one could put them back together. Then Robert said something. Quietly. He thought I wouldn't hear him. But I did. "I thought it was serious." That's what he said. And Isabella heard it too. She spun around like lightning. "Serious?" she asked. Her voice was pure fire. "You wanted it to be serious?" Robert turned pale. "No, I didn't mean..." But he did mean it. He did say it. And we all knew it. Isabella took a step toward him. "Say it. Say what you really thought." Robert didn't answer. He just stood there, with his mouth open, speechless, without defense. Because there was none. The truth was exposed. Raw, painful. He thought it was serious. He thought I was dying. And when he found out I wasn't, when he found out it was just anxiety, he was disappointed. My son. He was disappointed that I was still alive, and that was something I could never forget. The silence that followed was the heaviest of my life. Heavier than when we buried Audrey. Heavier than when I lost my first business. Because this silence screamed truths that no one wanted to admit. I looked at Robert, then at Veronica, then at Matthew, one by one. I saw their faces, and I saw the answer in all of them. They didn't have to say anything. They had already said it. With their reactions, with their careless words, with their barely hidden disappointment. My children, the children I raised, that I fed, that I educated, that I loved more than my life. They wanted me to die. They wouldn't say it like that. They would never admit it. But they wanted it. Because it would be easier. Because then they could take what was mine. Because then they would be free. Of me. Of the burden. Of the old man. And I finally saw it. I finally accepted what I always knew, but never wanted to see. I felt something different from pain. It was worse than pain. It was betrayal in its purest form, visceral, physical, as if I had been stabbed with a knife, slowly, deliberately, and they were twisting it inside. My own children, my own flesh and blood. The people who were supposed to love me, care for me, protect me. They wanted to see me dead. And now that I wasn't, now that I was still here, bothering them with my existence, they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to act, because they had shown their true colors, and they couldn't hide it again. The mask had fallen, and there was no way to put it back. I took a deep breath. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, not from weakness, from clarity, from a cold, brutal clarity. That changed everything. Absolutely everything. Isabella hugged me, tightly, as if trying to protect me, to shield me from them. "Let's go, Grandpa," she whispered. "Please, let's go." And I nodded, because I didn't want to be there for another second. I gathered my things, my coat, my wallet. Isabella helped me. The others stayed there, standing like statues, as if they didn't know what to do, what to say. I walked toward the door, Isabella beside me. And before going out, before crossing that threshold, I stopped. I turned around. I looked at them for the last time that night. And at that moment, at that precise moment, I made a decision that had been brewing all night, maybe my whole life. I was no longer going to be the father who endures everything, who forgives everything, who gives everything. No more. It was over. And they were going to know, they were going to understand what they did, what they lost, but not that night. That night I just needed to leave and not come back, never again. I stopped at the door, with my hand on the handle. Isabella looked at me, confused. "Grandpa, let's go," she whispered. But something in me had changed. In that ambulance, in that hospital, in that moment when I saw their disappointed faces because I was still alive. Something broke, and something else woke up. Something that had been asleep for years. Dignity, rage, strength. I don't know what to call it, but it was there, pulsating, demanding. And I couldn't leave like that. I couldn't walk out like a beaten dog, like the defeated old man they expected me to be. No, not this time. This time I was going to say something. I was going to do something. I let go of the handle, I turned around, and I walked back toward the living room. Isabella followed me. "Grandpa?" I didn't answer. I kept walking, firmly, each step more confident than the last. I entered the living room. They were all still there, like pillars of salt, watching me, surprised that I had returned. I walked straight to the table, to that end where they had seated me, where they had isolated me, where they had humiliated me. I saw Matthew's cell phone, right there, on the table, black, shiny, with all their lies inside. I grabbed it. Matthew reacted. "What are you doing?" he asked. His voice had that tone of someone who feels they are losing control, of someone who knows something is wrong. But he couldn't do anything, because I already had the phone in my hands, and I wasn't going to give it back. Not yet. I unlocked it. I knew his password. I had seen him enter it 1,000 times. 1,000 times I had pretended not to pay attention, but I knew it. 4, 8, 6, 3. It unlocked. I went to Instagram. My fingers were trembling, but not from fear, from determination. I looked for his profile. There it was. The video. The damn video. Our beautiful family Christmas dinner, with 352 likes, with comments. What a nice family. Blessed, Merry Christmas. Lies, all lies, built on my humiliation, on my pain. And there it was, exposed for the world to see, for the world to believe in a family that didn't exist. Matthew approached. "Dad, give me the phone." He held out his hand, but I took a step back. "No," I said. My voice came out clear, strong, without a tremor. "I'm not going to give it to you." His eyes widened. He didn't expect that. No one expected that. And I continued. With my finger on the screen, on the delete button. I deleted it, right there, in front of everyone. One tap. "Are you sure you want to delete this post?" "Yes." Another tap. It disappeared. 352 likes were gone. The comments were gone. The lie was gone. Matthew tried to snatch the phone from me, but I held it firmly, with a strength I didn't know I had. "This lie is not getting published," I said, looking him in the eyes. "You are not going to use my pain for your social media." I gave him the cell phone back. He took it. Stunned on. He looked at the screen. He searched for the video. It wasn't there. It was gone. Forever. And something in his face broke. Not from sadness, from rage. Because I took away his control. I took away the narrative. I took away the power to lie about me. And that made him feel small. For the first time all night. He was the small one, not me. Veronica approached, with that look of indignation. "Dad, don't be ridiculous," she said. Her voice was venom. "It's just a video, just a video." As if it didn't matter. As if my humiliation were entertainment. As if I didn't have the right to decide how I was shown to the world. I looked at her, intently, without blinking. "Ridiculous?" I asked. My voice was ice. "Am I ridiculous?" I took a step toward her. "Look at yourself. Look at yourself lying to the world. Lying about who you are, about what we are." She backed away. "I didn't." I cut her off. Yes, you did. And the worst part is that you're not even ashamed of it." She opened her mouth. She closed it. She had no defense. Because I was right. And she knew it. They all knew it. The silence in that room was so dense, it could be cut with a knife. Robert tried to mediate, as always. The lawyer, the one who thinks everything can be fixed with words. "Enough, Dad," he said in a calm voice. That therapist voice, negotiator voice. "You're tired. You're upset. Let's go to sleep and we'll talk calmly tomorrow. Let's go to sleep." As if I were a child throwing a tantrum, as if this could wait until tomorrow, as if sleeping would erase what they did, what they said, what I felt. I looked at him, and I shook my head. "No," I said, firmly, finally. "I'm not going to sleep. I'm leaving." His eyebrows rose. "What do you mean you're leaving?" "I'm leaving," I repeated. "I'm leaving here. I'm leaving you. I'm leaving this lie you call a family." And I saw how he processed my words. How he understood that I was serious. That this wasn't temporary. It was final. I reached into my coat pocket. I took out an envelope. White. Wrinkled at the corners. I had carried it with me for months. 6 months. Since the day I turned 81, and none of them called me until 3 days later. Since that day I wrote it, and I kept it, waiting for the right moment, or hoping I was wrong, hoping they would show me I didn't need it. But they didn't. Every day they proved the opposite, and today, they gave me every reason to use it. I walked toward the table. I placed the envelope in the center, where the plates once were, the glasses, the gifts that never arrived. "I wrote this months ago," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. "Today, you gave me the reason to deliver it." The four of them looked at me, at the envelope, at me, confused, scared perhaps. Veronica grabbed it first, always the most curious. She opened the envelope. She took out the pages, 2 pages, handwritten, in my shaky handwriting. She started reading in silence, but I spoke before she finished. "Read it out loud," I said. She looked at me. "Dad, I don't think—" "Read it," I ordered. And there was something in my voice, something that admitted no argument. She swallowed. She started reading. "Farewell letter." Her voice trembled. She stopped. She looked at her brothers. Robert leaned in. He read over her shoulder. His face turned pale. "Dad, this isn't—" I interrupted him. "It's not what? It's not necessary? It's not fair?" Silence. Matthew also approached. He read, and I saw something in him break. Good. Let them break. As I had broken all night, my whole life. Why couldn't they? "It's not a will," I said. "I'm not taking anything away from you. Everything that is mine will still be yours. When I die." I paused. "But this is something else. This is farewell. From you. From this farce. From this family that stopped being one a long time ago." Veronica dropped the letter. The pages floated to the floor. No one picked them up. "Dad, you can't—" "Yes, I can," I cut her off. "And I'm doing it." I looked at each one. "I spent my life giving you everything. My time, my money, my love. I sacrificed my dreams for yours. And today you showed me it wasn't worth anything." My voice cracked a little, but I continued. "Because to you, I am not your father. I am a nuisance, a burden, an old man who is waiting to die so you can take what you believe belongs to you." I walked toward the door. Isabella was already there, waiting for me, with tears in her eyes, but not of sadness, of pride. I could see it. She was proud of me, that I was finally defending myself, that I was finally saying enough. I put my hand on her shoulder, and I turned around, one last time to look at them, at my children, the children I once loved more than my life. "Merry Christmas," I said, and my voice had a tone I had never used with them. Sarcastic, bitter, real. I hope the likes are worth it. I hope the fake photos give you the warmth that a real family would, because that's all you're going to have. I opened the door. The cold night air rushed in, and something in me, something expanded, as if I could breathe for the first time in years. I closed the door, slowly, without slamming it, without drama, just closed. And with that closing, I also closed a chapter of my life. 54 years of being a father. 54 years of giving, loving, sacrificing myself. And it ended, right there, at that door, on that Christmas night. Isabella took my arm. "Let's go, Grandpa," she whispered. We walked toward her car, and with every step I took away from that house, I felt something strange. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't pain. It was liberation. As if chains I didn't even know I was wearing had been removed. As if finally, I could be me. Without expectations, without disappointments, without the burden of being the perfect father for children who would never love me as I loved them. And for the first time in my life, for the first time, that was okay. Isabella's car was small, old. It smelled of coffee and books. I sat in the passenger seat. She started the engine, and we left, in silence, watching the city lights pass by, the Christmas streets, still decorated, still festive, as if nothing had happened, as if my world hadn't broken that night. And maybe it hadn't. Maybe it was always broken. Only that night I finally saw it. I looked out the window. One house had the whole family in the yard, laughing, hugging, taking pictures. And I wondered, are they real? Or are they acting like my family acted? I didn't know. And I didn't care anymore. My family was no longer my family. Isabella drove slowly, carefully. From time to time she glanced at me, as if checking that I was okay, that I wasn't going to fall apart. But I was fine, or at least closer to being fine than I had been in years. I heard a soft sob. It was her. She was crying as she drove. Silent tears ran down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she said, her voice cracking. "I should have been here sooner. I should have seen what they were doing to you. I should have." I interrupted her. I put my hand over hers, the one on the gear stick. "It's not your fault, honey," I said softly. "You didn't have to save me. I should have saved myself a long time ago." She shook her head. But nothing," I said. "You arrived when you had to arrive, and that's what matters." We arrived at her apartment. Small, in an old building, 3rd floor, no elevator. We walked up the stairs slowly. She helped me, even though I didn't need it. She opened the door and we went in. The apartment was simple. A living room with an integrated kitchen, a worn sofa, a small table. Books everywhere. On shelves, in piles, on the floor, on the coffee table. It smelled of candles, of home, of real life. Not like Robert's house. Cold, perfect, dead. This was alive. Isabella pointed to the sofa. "Sit down, Grandpa. I'm going to make you something." I didn't argue. I sat down. The sofa was soft, comfortable. I sank into it. And for the first time in hours, in years maybe, I relaxed. I closed my eyes for a moment. Just a moment. And when I opened them, Isabella was in front of me, with 2 steaming mugs. She handed me a mug. I grabbed it with both hands. They were still trembling a little, but not as much as before. It wasn't fear. It wasn't weakness. It was liberation. Like when you drop something heavy you carried for too long, the muscles tremble from the relief. That was it. I took a sip. Chamomile tea. Sweet, calming. Isabella sat next to me, on the sofa, close. Her shoulder touched mine, and we stayed like that, in silence, drinking tea, listening to the noise of the city outside, cars passing, people laughing somewhere distant, life continuing, as it always continues. Regardless of the pain, regardless of the losses, life goes on. And I was going to go on too, in a different way. But I was going to go on. "What did the letter say?" Isabella asked after a while. Her voice was soft, curious, non-invasive. I looked at my mug, the steam rising, drawing shapes in the air. "It said," I began. I stopped. How to explain? How to put years of pain into words? Of disappointment? Of unrequited love? "It said that I loved them," I finally said. "That I gave everything I had, everything I was, and that now I choose me." I looked at her. I choose to live what's left for myself. Not for them, not waiting for their love, not seeking their approval. Just being me. I smiled. A sad but real smile. For the first time in my life, honey, I'm going to be selfish. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Isabella hugged me, tightly, and she cried on my shoulder. And I let her. Because she was crying for what I could no longer cry for, I stroked her hair, like I did when she was little, when she came to visit me and asked for stories from when her grandmother was alive. Don't cry for them, I said softly. Cry for the lost time, for the opportunities I didn't take, for the times I kept quiet when I should have shouted. She separated. She looked at me with red eyes. But Grandpa? But nothing, I repeated. What's done is done. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I wiped her tears with my thumb. And you? Don't cry anymore. You saved me today. You gave me the strength I needed. You showed me that there is still real love in this world. And for that, I will always be grateful to you. She smiled through her tears. Always, Grandpa. I'll always be here. And I believed her, because she was there. She had been there, and she was going to be there. I spoke, more to myself than to her, thinking aloud. You know, I spent my entire life giving, I said, looking at the mug. I thought love could be bought with sacrifice, that if I gave enough, if I gave myself completely, they would love me back. I was wrong. I took another sip. I was wrong because love doesn't work that way. You can't force it. You can't buy it. You can't demand it as payment for your sacrifices. I looked at Isabella. I gave them everything. But I didn't teach them to give. I gave them comfort. But I didn't teach them gratitude. I gave them unconditional love. And they learned not to value it, because it was always there, always available, always free. I shook my head. That was my mistake, not loving them, but loving them without teaching them to love in return. If you're listening to my story this far, please tell me in the comments where you are watching us from. Because I need to know that there are people in the world who understand this, who understand that sometimes love is not enough, that sometimes you have to let go, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Isabella listened attentively, and I continued. True love doesn't demand constant proof, I said. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't forget. It doesn't use. It doesn't manipulate. I paused. And when it does those things, when you feel invisible, when you feel used, when you feel less than nothing, then it is not love. It is habit. It is convenience. It is self-interest. But it is not love. My voice was firm now, clear. And I am not going to live the rest of my life accepting that. I am not going to do it. Isabella put her mug on the table. And now what, Grandpa? She asked. Her voice held hope. Fear, too, but mostly hope. I looked at her. This child who became a woman without me realizing it. This woman who defended me when no one else did. Now I live, I said simply. I live what's left of my life. 1 year, 5 years, 10 if I'm lucky. And I live it with those who truly love me. With you, if you let me stay for a while. Her eyes filled with tears again. Always, Grandpa. You can always stay. I nodded. And I'm going to do the things I never did. I'm going to travel. I'm going to read. I'm going to sit in a park and do nothing. I'm going to live without the burden of expecting something from someone. I'm going to be free. Finally free. I hugged her. This time I hugged her. Thank you, I said in her ear. Thank you for seeing, for shouting, for being here, for being the only person in that place who treated me like a human. She sobbed. Always, Grandpa. I will always be here. And I knew it was true, because real love is demonstrated in moments like these. Not in perfect photos, not in fake videos, not in empty words, but in actions, in defending, in standing up to your family and saying, this is wrong, in risking rejection for doing the right thing. That is love. And she showed it to me. She showed it to me in a way her uncles never could, never wanted to. And for that she was my family now. The only family that mattered to me. I got up from the sofa. Isabella showed me her room. She offered me her bed. She would sleep on the sofa, she insisted. I didn't argue. I was too tired to argue. I lay down. On clean sheets that smelled of lavender, I closed my eyes. And I waited for the familiar weight of sadness, of disappointment, of pain. But it didn't come. Instead, something different came, something light, something I hadn't felt in decades. Peace, real peace. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't expecting anything from anyone. I wasn't carrying the burden of disappointing someone. I wasn't measuring my worth by the love others gave me or denied me. I was just being Charles, being me. And that was enough. I fell asleep, deeply, without nightmares, without anxiety, only peaceful dreams of Audrey, of green fields, of freedom. And I woke up the next day a different man, a free man. And you? Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Have you ever given everything and received nothing? Or have you seen someone suffer this and couldn't do anything? If this story touched your heart, leave your comment down here. Tell me your story. Because you are not alone. You are never alone. And if this story helped you see something, to feel something, to decide something, then like it, share it, so more people can hear it. Because maybe someone else needs to hear this today. Maybe someone else needs the courage to let go, to choose themselves, to say enough. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, do it now. Because every day, we share real stories of real people. Stories that will make you cry, reflect, and above all, feel that you are not alone in this thing called life. Thank you for staying until the end, for listening to my story, for allowing me to share my pain and my liberation. Until the next story. This story powerfully illustrates that genuine family connection is built on respect, not obligation or mere appearance. The ultimate lesson I took from that painful Christmas is that one must redefine family to include those who treat you with dignity and love, like Isabella, and be brave enough to release those who cause systemic emotional harm. The necessary change is realizing that setting a strong, definitive boundary is not an act of malice, but an essential act of self-love and self-preservation. Realizing that I had the right to choose peace over pretense, even after 81 years, was my final, greatest act of fatherhood to myself. True happiness begins when you stop measuring your worth by the disappointing actions of others and start living authentically for the years you have left, free from the burden of unrequited loyalty.